Christmas morning at the Carter Mansion is a carefully choreographed performance, more for social media than for anyone else. The mansion shone with garlands. Every tree in the snow-covered garden was decorated, and piles of designer gifts were piled under the huge Christmas tree. It's like a Christmas melodrama that my mother-in-law sighed about. I felt like a prop in this carefully constructed production. Pressed against the cold wall of the living room, I watched my sisters-in-law, Stephanie and Brittany, tear into rustling Louis Vuitton and Tiffany wrapping paper with affected squeals. Each box, each ribbon screamed of indecent wealth, as if reminding me of my own inadequacy. My husband Jacob, heir to all this splendor, beamed with smug satisfaction, handing out gifts like a condescending monarch bestowing favors upon his subjects, diamond earrings for his mother, rare collector's whiskey for his father, shopping spree certificates in Paris for his sisters. The feigned delight and saccharine hugs, this annual ritual of status confirmation, a demonstration of family happiness for the outside world, always brought a bitter smile to my face. I remained on the sidelines, a shadow in this realm of ostentatious luxury, invisible and insignificant in their well-oiled machinery of wealth and vanity. Inside, the familiar feeling of alienation grew, as if I were watching someone else's life through thick glass. Then suddenly the noise subsided, as if someone had turned down the volume. The merriment, as fake as plastic Christmas ornaments, broke off mid-sentence. All eyes, which had previously glided past me as if I were an invisible piece of furniture, now turned to me. In the silence that hung in the living room, like frosty air, tension, awkwardness, and a premonition of something bad were distinctly felt. I instinctively shrank back, as if bracing for a blow, although I knew there would be no physical violence. Their weapons were cold contempt and verbal humiliation. "Oh, and we completely forgot about Emily," Stephanie exclaimed falsely, theatrically covering her mouth with her hand, as if she had just realized a terrible oversight. Mocking sparks danced in her eyes. "Well, here you go." Brittany, with a smirk, held out an empty shoebox, carelessly tied with cheap ribbon. "You're superfluous here anyway. Merry Christmas, dear relative." Jacob snorted, as if choking on air, and his parents exchanged satisfied grins, as if they had played a successful joke. I took the light box, trying to keep a calm expression on my face, although everything inside went cold with humiliation. I forced a semblance of a smile so as not to give them the pleasure of seeing my weakness. "Thank you," I said evenly, trying to keep my voice from trembling. "I have a gift too." Surprise mixed with slight anxiety was reflected on the Carters' faces. They exchanged glances, as if not understanding what was happening. Me? With a gift? This went beyond the usual script. "Your vegetarian cookies again?" Eleanor grimaced, as if she had bitten into something sour. "Thanks, no need. Last time Jacob suffered from heartburn all evening." "No," I shook my head, maintaining an impassive look. "Not cookies. Something more personal, and I think more valuable." Going upstairs to our already almost former bedroom, I returned, holding a box of thick craft paper, tied with a strict black ribbon. The box looked simple and elegant, strikingly different from the gaudy luxury of the other gifts. "This is for the whole family." I placed the box on the coffee table in front of the sofa. My composure and confidence began to irritate the Carters. Jacob frowned irritably, sensing that the situation was getting out of control. "More theatrics again, Emily? Can't you just give a normal gift like normal people?" "Just open it, Jacob," I said softly but firmly, looking him straight in the eye. He sighed, rolling his eyes as if doing me a great favor, untied the black ribbon and lifted the lid, and froze, staring at the contents of the box. Inside, in a neat stack, lay photographs. Each photograph was like a punch to the gut, shattering their facade of well-being. The first one, Jacob with Samantha, his assistant, in bed, a hotel room, recognizable by the corporate network logo, a corporate credit card on the nightstand. Proof of his infidelity carefully concealed behind the mask of the perfect husband. My husband, it turns out, is just like his father. The second, the father, Richard, handing a thick envelope to a frightened waitress. A bribe for silence, for an inconvenient encounter at a corporate party, to prevent a scandal that could damage his reputation as a respected businessman. Family values in all their glory. The third, Stephanie, bent over documents, forging a signature on a check. A financial crime, a scam that could cost her not only her reputation, but also her freedom. Successful businesswoman, right. The fourth, Brittany, stealthily opening a jewelry box. In her hand, Eleanor's pearl necklace glittered, a family heirloom, the pride of the family. Petty theft that betrayed her secret envy and dissatisfaction with her ideal position. Poor thing, envious even of her own mother. And the last, fifth, photograph lay separately, like a cherry on top of a cake, a medical certificate, test results, a lab printout with the result clearly highlighted, positive. What is this? What is this? Eleanor hissed, paling as if she had seen a ghost. The hand holding the diamond earring trembled. These are test results, I said calmly, as if reporting the weather forecast. A pregnancy test. I'm pregnant, but the child is not Jacob's. The silence that hung in the living room exploded like an overstretched string. Shouts, accusations, angry outbursts rained down on me like a storm wind. You slut! Jacob roared, his face turning purple with rage, hatred splashing in his eyes. How could you, after everything we've done for you? You've destroyed our family, Richard shouted, shaking the photograph with the envelope as if trying to defend himself with it. His respectability and composure vanished in an instant, revealing the bestial snarl of fear and anger. Stephanie and Brittany remained silent in shock, mouths agape like fish thrown onto the shore. Their faces, which had recently shone with false joy, were now distorted by horror and the realization of disaster. And you destroyed my life? I replied calmly, looking at them with icy contempt. 3 years of humiliation, neglect, constant reminders that I am a stranger here? You have always seen me as just an appendage to Jacob, a poor relative, unworthy of your society. Now I'm leaving, and I'm taking your secrets with me. With a magician's gesture, I pulled a phone out of my pocket. The phone screen was already lit up, showing an open address book and a message-sending window. The photos have already been sent, I calmly explained, to friends, colleagues, business partners, clients, everyone who should know the truth about your perfect family. It's time for the world to see the real you. Eleanor clutched her heart, gasping, as if she couldn't breathe. You wouldn't dare, she croaked, her face contorted with pain and horror. Already done, I replied with a cold, triumphant smile. This is just the beginning, the first swallow of truth. Jacob, as if gone mad, lunged at me, raising his hand. I stepped back towards the door, not taking my eyes off his face contorted with rage. Divorce, Jacob, I said in an icy tone. Infidelity, financial fraud, bribery, theft. With such achievements, you'll be left penniless. Your world will collapse like a house of cards, and it will be only fair. You beast, Jacob snarled, choking with impotent rage. I turned and walked out of the mansion, leaving behind the screams, curses, and howl of the Carters' collapsing world. A taxi, pre-ordered, thoughtfully, was waiting for me at the entrance. To the airport, I said briefly to the driver, slamming the door. Behind me, in the frosty air, Jacob's cry, full of despair and hatred, still echoed for a long time, but I no longer heard it. I was looking ahead, into an open future, full of uncertainty and hope. A month later, the marriage was dissolved. Thanks to skilled lawyers, I received a significant portion of the Carters' fortune. Jacob lost not only money, but also his reputation in business circles. The Carter firm, having lost its impeccable image and mired in scandals, faltered. Clients turned away, shares plummeted. The business was on the verge of collapse. Stephanie was fired from the bank for fraud. Her career was ruined, her reputation forever tarnished. Brittany ran away from home with some con artist, trying to find solace in a new, luxurious life, but quickly lost all her savings, becoming a victim of his deception. Richard divorced Eleanor, unable to withstand the pressure of the scandal. His mistress, taking advantage of the situation, posted their intimate correspondence online, finishing off the reputation of the former respected businessman. The new scandal became the final nail in the coffin of his career. I sat on the balcony of a spacious house in Miami, sipping a cool margarita, looking at the boundless ocean merging with the blue sky. Freedom, sun, limitless possibilities, that's what surrounded me now. The past remained behind, like a nightmare. A message arrived on my phone from an unknown number. Satisfied? You ruined us all, Jacob. I smiled lazily, took a sip of margarita, blocked the number, and threw it out of my memory like unnecessary trash. The past is buried. Ahead, a new life. Christmas morning at the Carters' mansion, the last page turned. Ahead, a bright future. But in reality, the future turned out to be much more complex and interesting than just bright. Miami greeted me not only with a gentle sun and warm ocean, but also with a dazzling, sometimes scorching, emptiness. Away from the snowy landscapes and the false glitter of the Carters' Christmas, I faced a new reality. A reality of absolute freedom, but also of unexpected, piercing loneliness. The money received in the divorce provided me with financial independence that I had never even dreamed of before, but it did not fill the gaping void that had formed after the painful break with my past life. I bought a spacious house with panoramic ocean views, as planned, imagining an idyllic picture of a new life. But for the first weeks, I felt like a stranger in it, a guest in luxurious apartments, restless and lost. The luxurious setting, expensive furniture, exquisite decor, all this brought no joy, and the silence of the huge house pressed down like a heavy burden. It had no echoes of past scandals, but it also lacked warmth, comfort, a feeling of home. I understood that money does not solve all problems, and began to fill the empty days with activity, trying to find new meaning and new attachments. I enrolled in intensive Spanish courses to at least communicate with local residents, to immerse myself in the culture of this new city for me. I started doing yoga on the beach in the mornings, breathing in the salty air and feeling my body gradually filling with energy. I discovered an unexpected joy in culinary masterclasses, became passionate about painting, as if trying to express on canvas those feelings and emotions that I had kept inside for a long time. New acquaintances were made easily, like a light breeze, but remained superficial, fleeting. People saw in me primarily a rich divorced woman, an exotic bird that had escaped from a golden cage, and this created an invisible distance. I lacked sincerity, depth, genuine human warmth, closeness, which I had been deprived of in the Carter family, but had not been able to find in the New World. One day, aimlessly strolling along the promenade, enjoying the sound of the waves and the cries of seagulls, I accidentally met a man. His name was David. He turned out to be the owner of a small art gallery, modest, almost underground, full of paintings and sculptures breathing genuine art, not commercial success. David was unpretentious, with kind, slightly tired eyes and a quiet, welcoming smile. We talked about painting, about the sea, about life, about coincidences and patterns that sometimes intertwine so strangely. David knew nothing about my past, about my wealth, about the scandalous divorce. He saw in me simply a woman, an interesting sobesednica, conversationalist, a person who had something to say and something to feel. And it was like a breath of fresh air for me, a long-awaited liberation from the burden of the past. Our relationship developed slowly, like a blossoming flower, gradually, step by step. David helped me to look at my passion for painting in a new way, to see in my hesitant strokes and timid lines a real talent, inspired me to create my own works. He saw in me not only a wealthy woman, but also a creative person, supported my artistic endeavors, gave valuable advice, shared his experience and knowledge. For the first time in a long time, I felt valued not for money, not for status, not for belonging to the right family, but for who I was, for my inner world, for my desire for self-expression. Next to David, I felt calm and safe, as if I had found a quiet harbor after a long storm. Half a year passed like water under the bridge. My pregnancy was surprisingly easy and joyful. I was expecting a girl, a little miracle, a new life that was supposed to fill the void and bring new meaning. Jacob tried to contact me several times, first with threats, full of rage and hatred, then with pathetic pleas for forgiveness, trying to manipulate my guilt, but I did not answer his calls and messages. The past was cut off, like an old, unnecessary cord, like an amputated limb that no longer ached or reminded itself. One evening, sitting on the terrace with David, watching the crimson sunset painting the ocean in delicate pink tones, I received an email from the Carter family lawyer. The letter, in a dry, official tone, reported that Eleanor Carter was seriously ill, her condition critical, and she wanted to see me before she died. Eleanor, according to the lawyer, asked for forgiveness for everything that had happened, for her cruelty and injustice, and wanted to bless the future child, a granddaughter she would never see. I pondered, immersed in deep thought. Part of me, hardened by resentment and humiliation, wanted to simply ignore this letter, erase it from my memory, as you erase unnecessary files from a computer. To forget about the Carters forever, to cross them out of my life, as if they had never existed. But another part, the one that still remembered humanity, compassion, the possibility of forgiveness, suggested that you cannot refuse a dying person's last request, even if that dying person has caused you so much pain. Conflicting feelings fought in my soul, anger and resentment, thirst for revenge, and a timid desire to forgive and let go. I told David about the letter, shared my doubts and inner turmoil. He listened to me attentively, without interrupting, without giving advice, just being there, ready to support. When I finished, he said calmly and wisely, "It's up to you to decide, of course. It's your past, your pain. But perhaps this is a chance to put a final point. Both for you and for her. Forgiveness is not only for the other person, but also for yourself, to free yourself from the burden of grievances and move on." I hesitated for several days, tormented by doubts and conflicting feelings, and then, suddenly for myself, bought a plane ticket to New York. David, seeing my confusion and understanding the importance of this step, offered to go with me. His support and presence were especially important to me now. The Carters' mansion greeted us with coldness and desolation. Without festive illumination, without gaudy garlands, without mountains of gifts, it seemed gray and dreary, like a faded photograph of past well-being. Inside, a depressing atmosphere of mourning and desolation reigned, as if the house was dying along with its mistress. Richard Carter had aged and gaunt, as if he had aged 10 years in a few months. Stephanie looked exhausted and nervous. Dark shadows lay under her eyes. Brittany was absent. It was rumored that she was in a rehabilitation clinic, being treated for drug addiction. Jacob was not there. He, according to rumors, had left the city trying to start a new life, free from the shadow of the past. Eleanor lay in a huge bed, surrounded by pillows, emaciated and weak, like melting candle wax. But in her extinguished eyes, framed by deep wrinkles, a faint spark of life still burned, a hope for redemption. Seeing me, she barely moved her lips and smiled weakly, as if gathering her last strength. Thank you for coming," she whispered, her voice barely audible, like the rustle of dry leaves. "I don't deserve, but I wanted to see you so much, and your child, my granddaughter." I, moved by an unexpected impulse of pity and compassion, approached the bed. Eleanor stretched out a weak, almost transparent hand, and carefully, as if afraid to hurt, touched my stomach, where a new life was beating under the thin fabric of my dress. Forgive me, she whispered, tears streaming down her sunken cheeks, leaving wet trails on her pale skin. For everything. For my cruelty. For not accepting you. I was so stupid. So blind. I only thought about status, about money, about public opinion. But true happiness? It's not in that at all. I realized it too late. Tears flowed faster and faster. Eleanor gasped with sobs, as if crying out all the pain and bitterness of her lived life. I felt the anger and resentment that had accumulated over the years gradually receding, giving way to compassion and understanding. I took Eleanor's weak hand in mine, warming it with my warmth. "It's okay," I said quietly, almost in a whisper. "It's all in the past. I don't hold a grudge against you." Eleanor smiled weakly, her eyes full of tears filled with gratitude and relief. "Be happy, Emily," she whispered, looking me straight in the eyes. "Truly happy, you deserve it. And forgive me again." Eleanor passed away a few days later. I did not stay for the funeral, did not want to immerse myself again in the atmosphere of falsehood and hypocrisy. I returned to Miami, to David, to my new life, to my future. The conversation with Eleanor, unexpectedly sincere and poignant, brought me a relief I had not expected. I was able to let go of the past for good, to free myself from its heavy burden. Anger and resentment dissolved like smoke, leaving room for forgiveness and understanding. Soon my daughter was born, a healthy, beautiful girl, a little miracle, a symbol of new life. I named her Eleanor, in memory of my mother-in-law, who at the end of her life was able to see not only status and money, but also human dignity, to recognize her mistake and ask for forgiveness. And in this there was her lesson and her redemption, both for Eleanor the elder and for me. Life went on, rushed forward like ocean waves, and ahead there was indeed a bright future, no longer as cloudless and simple as it seemed at first, but real, filled with meaning, love, hope, and a quiet but solid confidence in tomorrow. And this was much more important than any Christmas performance in the Carter's mansion, than all the riches of the world, than empty words and fake smiles.